Okay, hey guys. So first things first about that title. I finally got around to packaging up my UI and putting it up for download on WoW interface. So for all questions and all things regarding my UI and how do I set voodoo and all this junk, I'm not gonna actually do a tutorial on like how to do an add-on because there's several hundreds that are already out there, and I think part of developing your own UI means struggling with these add-ons, and if you struggle with them, you tend to learn more about them so you can configure your UI just exactly the way you want. So, I mean, maybe in the future I'll do a specific add-on highlight video or something, but that link, or, in the description, check the description. Anything with my UI, I'm just going to like link this video so people can get linked to my download page, and you can just download everything I have, and then that's like all. That's all I have. I mean, I can't get any more clear than that. Something about this UI package, I'm not going to sit here and update it like all the time, and I'm not going to manage it. And if you are struggling with the technicalities of how to download and install it, I did put a helpful little text file. It's called README First. When you download the package, there are 3 files: the README file, the WTF folder, and the interface folder. I had to include the entire interface folder because I have a bunch of add-ons that are in that. Aside from just that add-ons folder, there's a bunch of other folders that modify like the Blizzard themes, the Blizzard panels and texts and fonts and all that crap. So there is a UI in there, or there's a text file called README. It's there to help you out, to try to help you install. But if you're still having problems past all of that information, I don't know what to tell you. Just experiment and try to figure it out. Okay, so now that everyone has a copy of my UI, there's a few things that have kind of been on my mind about just how to juggle all of the different things that you can juggle, especially as a discipline priest, because currently in game, discipline priests have the most things that they could watch for. This is an opinion, but I challenge people to actually come up with another class that has to watch so many things. So discipline priests currently have to do the most things. So here's like how I manage it. Now, some of the things that I get to watch, like during a given encounter, is, well, I mean, okay, first of all, my chat frame. The thing about like your UI is you want to minimize the amount of space things are taking up, because you can have all of the useful information and you can even have like a minimalistic approach, but spare things that are hanging out and just like taking up space will actually lessen the amount of information you can present to yourself during a given encounter. And I know you might think like you're Superman, or like, I'm not going to get confused by my chat log or the combat log or recount or omen threat meter, but the simple fact of the matter is they are more panels, and they do take away from your peripheral vision's attention. So the add-on that you get with my package called Hide Chat Button, that's where my pointer's pointing now. It's a little tiny box in the corner is how I have it set up. I have that macro to hide read count, so on a given encounter, if I don't need those, I hide them. Because sometimes there's some important information being displayed in chat during a raid encounter. Like sometimes Deadly Boss Mods will say some useful stuff in here. Or sometimes my rogue's macro that tells me who's tricksing the trading will pop up and say, I just tricked you, you're about to die because I'm trying to get you killed on trash. So I do try to hide those if I can. In my kill videos, I try to leave recount up so people can see how much healing per second I'm doing. But when we're like doing stuff, I try to keep it hidden. Okay, so to start with, where your focus should be, pretty much your tune front and center should always be your focus. So regardless of how you feel about that, that is how your eyeball should be on your tune. It should always know like what you're standing in, where you're standing. And then another thing about playing your tune is you kind of want to make sure that you can see like other people in relation to yourself. Like it's not just about like looking at your tune and only your tune. It's about seeing the whole raid. So what I would invest in is a good add-on, which is included in my folder, called Tidy Plates. That combined with this, with some clever use of some macros, like they're all mouse over macros, but that with my healer macros, such as these, what these do is when you're spamming it, the reason there's an exclamation point is for spam purposes. When you spam this macro, you can try to heal, try to heal, try to heal, and it won't actually heal if you're outside your voodoo frames. But if you do hover over one of these nameplates, it does try to hit the person that's over the nameplate. So as you can see here, like here, I won't even target the mountain goat if I can. Oh well. Basically, I can sit here and like cast spells all day and then like hover them over the nameplates, and then that will like target the spells that I need to see. Okay, so the next thing about playing a Disc Priest, like, okay, so if your focus is on your character and you have these floating nameplates, you kind of have a pretty good bead on where things are and how to heal by mouse over. The other thing that I try to look at is always be casting. Discipline Priest has a lot of instants, and a lot of them are modified by haste. So as you can see here, I do have like a monitor that shows my global cast time. My global cast time is something that it'll separate you from like the not so good healers, is if you can just follow that rule of always be casting. If you're moving, you should be like doing some form of an instant as long as you have the mana. If you're like chain casting, pillared in place, you should always be trying to maximize like that next heal or queuing up the next thing that you need to be doing in advance. If you're sitting there with dead time, that's like just lessening your performance, especially as a priest, because you know you're not just about healing. You can do quite a bit of DPS to help meet Titan rage timers. So get like my other eye, I guess, is like on this casting bar. Then the other thing I look at a Disc Priest is like on my frames. There's a couple things to look out for. For one, you can see Grace stacked up here in the top corner. When I do stack Grace and I'm managing it on multiple targets, that keeps my eye. And pretty much with the Grace, the hard and fast is just always do it on a target that's about to take damage. The other thing I keep track of in that same corner is Renew. I have a hotbar set up to track Renew, so I can kind of see it better as Discipline. But when I'm Holy and when Grace isn't on a target, I can actually see it by timer, and then that makes it easier to refresh if I'm in like Serenity Chakra or something. The other thing I manage is my Absorbs. That's what Divine Aegis looks like, but you can also layer in Power Word Shield, and like I do have them like pre-ordered, so it's like Aegis is underneath, or is over top Shield, and then Spirit Shell is on top of all of them. Now even if I don't have like the Spirit Shell cooldown running, it still tracks the Absorb. I thought about putting all three Absorbs in a bouquet so you can see all three of them at once, but that might be a little bit overkill, and my voodoo frame is already getting a little crowded because I do have to also track Weakened Soul, because I want to be able to see how much time is left on it so I can do this Strength of Soul and try to get it off casted faster. So that's something I do. If I'm Spec Body and Soul, the speed boost is over top of the Weakened Soul icon, so I can see like speed boosts, and more importantly I can see speed boosts from like other priests. So I mean that can be helpful. Not really, but I did put it there because it's like a redundant thing. Why not? And then Prayer of Mending. Voodoo has a pretty good Prayer of Mending tracker, and it shows how many charges are left, so you can game the charges and you can see exactly which target it's on at all times. I have it only showing my Prayer of Mending, so it doesn't get confused with other priests. So yeah, that jumps around from the middle of the frame. My like raid marker, which is something that like I want to get out of using, but Deadly Boss mods in most encounters will put raid markers on people. I have that kind of like out of the way, but I'm looking maybe at just removing it altogether from my frames. We'll see. Because, okay, here's my justification for removing a raid marker. Raid markers are one of those things that it's on your target in DBM if they have like a debuff or something, and quite honestly, my debuffs are in this lower right-hand corner where my mouse pointer is now, and I can track all those debuffs pretty clearly. So I can track all those debuffs, and then I have like all tank cooldowns in this upper right-hand corner. Like see, here's like pain suppression. The way I have it is it's just a priority listing. The heaviest cooldown is always up at the front. And then like underneath that, I can actually see what the other healers are doing. Like I can see Life Bloom stacks, I can see Earth Shield, Beacon of Light, I can see big healer cooldowns. Like, you know, these are really useful tank cooldowns on tanks, but other people have cooldowns too that you kind of want to see. So I can see Faint, Cloak of Shadows, Ice Block, Cauterize, Dark Bargain, Pally Bubbles. I can see when Manatide goes down. I can see when Rallying Cry goes out. I can see when the Devotion Aura is used. I can see when... I mean, I can see like a lot of stuff basically. And I can see like the Tree of Life form. And then another thing about Tree of Life and like just HOTS in general is the Mistweaver Uplift, or Renewing Mist, Wild Growth, Rejuvenation, and Riptide from Shamans, and Eternal Flame from Paladins, they all show up as a hot bar. Like, my Renew bar is up here. Well, their bars, they're underneath it, and if you see my videos, they have like their own little separate colors. I rode with a Shaman and a Druid primarily, so the green bars are the Druid, and the blue bars are the Shaman. I don't really need to know like how much healing those are doing or like what specific spell it is. I just need to know that there is a hot on the target. So sometimes I use that to minimize overhealing. If I see a hot in a target and they're climbing up, I don't touch them. So that's a trick. And then, oh yeah, this red thing. This red thing isn't just like my mouse is on this target. This is actually calculating how many people you're going to hit if you Prayer of Healing this target. So if there's like other people in my team, if they were like 40 yards away from me, like, more than 40 yards away or whatever, 40 yards or, more, or 30 yards or more, then Prayer of Healing wouldn't have this like red thing on it. It would just be over me, and then this person would be out of the way. If I moved closer, they would suddenly turn red. If I just kind of quickly mouse over all of the group, I can quickly establish the most red boxes is the one I want to click Prayer of Healing on. I don't like the add-ons that do Prayer of Healing recommendations because they're buggy due to latency, and they're also kind of distracting. I'd rather just have that control over like, okay, this target is taking heals, this target will take a Prayer of Healing, like that kind of thing. I don't go below 4 targets in my Prayer of Healing very often. If I do, it's usually intentional. Okay, so that's something I do. What else? Oh, my cooldowns. Discipline has a ton, like a ton of short cooldowns and then like short-term, longer-ish cooldowns. The way that I handle those, I just put them all together in one bar. I used to not have the longer cooldown showing, because I'd cast them and I'm like good enough, I feel, that I can manage like those cooldowns as they're going. But the truth is there were so many different buttons I got going into this expansion that I can't do that anymore. So I put this bar and basically it just goes in a U shape, but all my cooldowns are over there, and then I have all these buffs and stuff on this side of the bar, and they track things that are like, things that I think are really just quick little things I need to see, like how much time do I have left to use that Divine Insight proc, how much time do I have left to use like a Prayer of, or a Borrowed Time combo, that kind of thing. I don't really focus on this, but it does need to just be there when I need it at a glance, so that's kind of how I handle it. So I handle all of those, and then if you've seen me raid Holy, you know that my my Holy stance, whichever chakra I'm in, is right next to my other stance, which, that's something I don't actively manage, but it is something I need to know, because there are a lot of times I'll like stance. I do it when I'm low on mana, and I do it sometimes when I need to do some extra weird things, like I need the movement speed, or I need the extra spell power, or I need to like go bubble spam happy, or whatever. There's a lot of different things. And then one of the last things I'm managing here is like if I cast a Power Word Shield, hopefully these things actually do enough damage. I don't these things might be like really crap guys that won't be able to pop my Bummel. Let's see if I can make that easier. Basically, what I'm trying to illustrate here is there is a Rapture proc that can go off. I actually don't remember the / command for Angela's Rapture, but it's... That's what it looks like. Now the thing about Angela's Rapture is, although I am like sort of keeping an eye on it, I keep like my eyes fall off of it every now and then, because I do have like a sound file that does the sound for Angela's Rapture, like brr. The thing I'll say about sounds is that's like one more way of getting around just like the visual overload of the things that are coming at you. You can put up a ton of sounds to like try to get past that, but don't overdo it. Like I'm really on the fence right now, because what I did in the last expansion is I had the Angela's Rapture sound going off, and then I also had a sound that would just ping every time 10 seconds to Evangelism was ready to go, because that means you can cast a Holy Fire like every 10 seconds, or you can cast like some other spell, or you need to be alerted that like, oh, my evangelism stacks are about to fall off. I took that out because I feel that the way I was treating Archangel in this expansion wasn't as like weight with Holy Fire stacks and just like Holy Fire on cooldown. It wasn't that flexible anymore. So I took that out because it was becoming like too much of an information overload, and that's just two sounds on top of the DBM sound, which yells at you if you're doing something stupid. So like that was too much information for me. I only have like the one Angelus Rapture sound going, and I really, really am on the fence about putting more sounds in. So now, how to like handle all of these things? There are so many timers that like clash with one another, and you need to know like, oh, this does more healing per second if you don't do this, but you also need to manage these spells and these debuffs, and like there is just a ton of information being presented at you, and like theoretically the human mind can only process about like 7 things at a time. And like, this is on top of the normal things you're doing in an encounter. Like if you do have like deadly boss mods going, I also need to be like looking at the timers as they're occurring. So like this is, and okay, here's another thing. Like here's the test bars for like deadly boss mods. There are some fights where I'll focus the other healer, and then I'll watch their cast bar with other timers, and then like I can just sort of at a glance see if they're doing like, I mean, I heal with the shaman a lot, so if he's doing like single target heals, I know who he's pretty much like triaging on our healer frames, and if he's doing like chain heals, I know that the tank is probably going to dip a little low here because he's the one that can like drop some nukes in the tank. Like, so the way I'm handling it this expansion is I'm not like Wonder Child and managing everything. Oh, I forgot about my mana bar. You kind of want to manage your mana too, but I have that out of the way because it's not important. You kind of want to like know in advance like how the fight's gonna go, because if you're just like doing Archangel all the time, or you're making sure Grace is up on the tank all the time, or you're keeping Prayer of Mending on cooldown or Penance on cooldown, or you're doing perfect Rapture timing, or all of these tricks, a lot of that might be overkill. Like, know how much healing per second you actually have to do during an encounter, and then try to just pick only what you need. Like, as a bare minimum, like that's how I approach even like the strict healer checks where it's like, this is burst AoE. I look at it not from a, oh, that means I just need to like maximize my AoE throughput and I play like a DPS. I actually go, okay, well then what is the bare minimum that I can do to like get by? Because if you are getting locked into a rotation of just trying to manage all of these different things, you're inevitably going to let other priority things drop, and it also takes out a lot of that like flexibility, and that's something you need to be adaptable for as a healer. Like, you need to just be really quick to go, okay, Rapture's not important right now. A healer just went down. This is about to happen. All of this crazy shit's going on. I can't be sitting here going, well, I need to maximize my mana return. I like the emergency mode, activate, like do other things. Like, you need to be quick on your feet to think about that kind of stuff. So really what happens in an encounter is I kind of manage like maybe about 3 things at a time. Like I'll pay attention to like a boss timer. I'll go, okay, like I need to look at my cooldowns here because like I'm about to roll spirit shells in coordination with this boss timer. And then I look at like a tank and I look at their cooldowns. Do they need this cooldown? Load them up with grace. Try to like do something you can to like prevent something big from happening. Like maybe load them up with a shield, and then okay, like start doing my spirit shell rotation, and then try to manage other things outside of that. Like, oh, before spirit shell is about to go off, my mindbender is about to come out, so I'm actually delaying a little bit of time on mindbender here. Can I afford to like cast a mindbender during my spirit shell? I make decisions like that, and I really don't focus on a whole lot because I'm doing all this, not really paying attention to Rapture. Grace might be falling off. My evangelism stacks, who knows what they're doing. But then there are other times where, that's like an entirely different situation. Like, oh, I need to be doing max DPS. I need to be paying attention to like all of my other timers. Like, say if I'm doing some fight and I'm like doing straight up like max damage rotations on the targets, need to make sure I get as many smites in during a holy fire rotation as possible. Try to get that penance on cooldown, and my train of thought's cooling it down faster, so I need to like maximize that return. I'm really only looking at those 3 things. I'm not paying attention to very much else. Grace on a tank? Nope. Like, how much time is on evangelism? I don't care. Like, I'm doing evangelism. I know there's like plenty of time on it. My mana? Yeah, it's being drained at a fixed rate, and I kind of know what that fixed rate is, so I don't really need to pay attention to it. The healer bars, well, I know the melee group's going to be about fine-ish because these are smart heals and they're just going to spot the people in melee, so maybe keep an eye on the ranged party. Like, that's the kind of decision making I do. So I guess my parting advice is it's not about like being superstar, king of the world, and juggling all of these billions of cooldowns like on a given encounter. Um, there's a time to like make sure your prayer of healing hits all people and you need to reposition. Same thing like with these new spells. I'm taking Halo a lot for some of the later bosses in Heart of Fear instead of Cascade, just because of the way the fights work. Repositioning for myself is really important, so I'm like really paying attention to the floating name plates on fights where there's like a lot of movement. Kind of like paying attention to that stuff as well. Um, it's about like knowing the encounter, basically. Like if you know the encounter, you know what's like more important in your list of mini priorities or mini rotations you can get into. That's what's most important. So, and sometimes encounters can be challenging. Sometimes you're going to be juggling like 8 or 9 things, and that's just like how it's going to be, and it's going to tax you. That was the case for Sinestra for me. That's like the hardest fights I've ever healed were Sinestra, Balrog, maybe Unspine, but not really. But like in the last tier, those are the fights that stick out as just like this was so many things I needed to watch. This was taxing for me as a disciplined priest. So there are times like where you need to like know your limits and you want to like minimize the amount of things you're trying to do, but then there are also times where you need to just like buck it up and do better, like practice harder. So I guess yeah, read the encounter, know what's required of you, and then you can know not really like what things do I need to optimally use in my rotation, but what things can I not pay attention to. Peace.